Okay, so I don't think these following examples will work in an American court. And I don't think my law insurance covers international courts, but this religion is about all life on earth. So I'm going to list all the countries the US sabotaged in order to protect the interest of American corporations. Keep in mind that these operations were conducted through secrecy, deceit, lies, and denial, so there could be more countries where evidence never came to light. The first is any attempt the Native Americans made to establish sovereignty. Sure, eventually they got their nations, which are symbolic more than anything, and not to mention it was only after the worst mass taking away of future descendants in all of human history. We Europeans took away a hemisphere of people almost in their entirety, took their land either with no permission or by cheating or by taking people away, and claimed to be the civil ones. The next is America. When America was founded, it was declared that all men are created equal and deserve life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and justice for all. None of that was given to Africans in America or their descendants, even after hundreds of years and a civil event that took people away. They were treated very unfairly on an industrial level for centuries. That kind of psychological impact doesn't just go away, and those mean sentiments still carry on to this day. The meanies like to hide their meanness through doublespeak, technicalities, whoopsie daisies, and anything from gerrymandering to making fun of anything associated with the ones getting picked on, in this case, the African Americans. And also in America, we took away a lot of Chinese people who built the railways with poor safety measures in place, if there were any to begin with. But the next country is Mexico. The US likes to think the Mexican American event that took people away was its first real event that took people away. But they sneaked into Mexico right after Mexico spent years trying to return the French back to France. It wasn't a real event that took people away so much as being mean to someone when they were down. And don't get me wrong, Mexico was a really mean empire at the time, but America has taken up that very same mantle. Now we move on to Hawaii. It was a kingdom before the US made it a state because the Queen seemed to challenge the interest of American sugar companies established in Hawaii by the descendants of white missionaries. So they sent a group of people to take people away, overthrew her, and established one of the sugar owners as head honcho. Next was Cuba, Puerto Rico, the Philippines, and Guam. These were colonized by Spain, and the US didn't like having Spanish authorities so close to the US, so they aided liberation groups in Cuba and Puerto Rico with promises of freedom. And Guam and the Philippines were just part of the package since the event that takes people away was with Spain. And America was just another cheater who took the lands. They lied about the freedom because they didn't want foreign countries so close to the US. And they also had American corporations in Cuba and didn't want to treat the Cubans fairly, so they made Puerto Rico a territory. And in Cuba, they installed a corrupt dictator that allowed American corporations to be mean to the native population and resources. That's going to be a recurring theme in these examples. The Philippines and Guam didn't fall under the category of too close to the US, but they were still cheated of their freedom. Guam became a territory where, despite being a tiny island, 25% of their land is owned by the US group of people that take people away. The people of Guam serve in the American group of people that take people away, yet they are neglected by our government. The Philippines also had liberation groups, and once they won, they were looking for America to keep their promise. But America decided to keep control over the country to themselves for over 40 years, during which time the Japanese Empire sneaked into the Philippines, and America did nothing to protect the people who were technically Americans at that point. And a quick side note, Japan was forced to open its country to free trade agreements by the US, but were given unfair deals by Western powers and felt like the only way not to end up unfairly treated is to become like the unfair imperial Western powers. Japan was minding its business, but we inspired them into a really mean empire. And in our defense, we were inspired by the Middle East, Northern Europe, Northern Africa, and Russia, who I'm sure were inspired by others. Next up is Nicaragua. In the early 1900s, America had powerful corporations in Nicaragua, and a new president rose to power with promises of regulating these corporations. The US did not like that, and the Secretary of State worked with propagandists and the Marine people to bully the president into stepping down, and he had to, for his own safety. It wouldn't be long before America does the same to Honduras for the same reasons, except this time it wasn't someone in the government, but an American civilian who owned a banana company and didn't want to pay his fair share to Honduras. He was wealthy enough to buy a ship, fill it with a private group of people who take people away, and use this private group to sneak into Honduras, and the American government knew about this, but they didn't like that the president was trying to help his people, so they sided with the American businessman and forced the president to stand down. The new president was such a puppet that not only did he give lucrative deals to the banana businessman, but he used Honduran taxpayer money to repay for the cost of the ship and the private group. In the 1950s, America is a superpower and has created the CIA. Both America and the USSR participate in cheating one another by cheating countries who aligned with either side. The Cold War was anything but cold. The bad things that took places in so many countries were a word that starts with B and rhymes with floodbath. Just because that B word never reached the US doesn't mean other people didn't go through a really bad place because of us and the USSR. In 1953, a new leader was elected in Iran who promised to take back control of the country's oil from a British oil company. The British were mean to the new leader and even got help from the CIA using taxpayer money. The CIA bribes local leaders and clergymen to spread lies about the new leader. People were paid to be mean to leaders of an R word that rhymes with religion and make it look like the new leader was behind it. And people were paid off to demonstrate against the new leader. All of this creates an atmosphere of confusion. The new leader is arrested and imprisoned, and in his place comes the Shah of Iran. This guy gave the oil to both the British and the Americans, was such a mean dictator to his people, it led to a revolution that empowered a new party based on their disapproval of America for cheating their country, which is understandable, but also important to note that these decisions and all of these instances of cheating were made by a few people in positions of power in secrecy, away from the public's knowledge or through lying to the public to get our support. Because even we, the American people, get cheated by the American government and rich corporations. But next up is Guatemala. And again, for the same reasons and the same way, a new president wants to end the monopolies of American corporations and return Guatemalan land to Guatemalans, but the CIA gets to work setting up a radio station to spread lies to Guatemalan citizens. They give things to take people away to exiles and drop things that really take everything away in parts of the country to sow the sentiments of event that takes people away, and the president knows the US won't stop until he steps down, so he does. And the puppet president gives the US and corporations what they want and goes on to mess up the country. All because the US sees any attempt of a foreign government to provide for their people and regulate American corporations as communism, which is really bad and must be stopped, no questions asked. In the 1960s, many African regions were gaining independence from European powers. The Democratic Republic of Congo had just elected a democratic leader. Nothing wrong so far. But the Congo is rich in uranium, and the nuclear race was in full swing. America didn't want Russia to get a hold of the Congo, so they made the first move. They funded opposition to the democratically elected president and again used lies and cheating to turn the people against him, and he was ousted. The puppet government served the US at the expense of the Congolese people, and it's soul crushing to realize that this country is still being cheated because of its natural resources, although this time it's mostly for cobalt. After that, there was an issue in the Dominican Republic. A really mean dictator is in charge, but what sets the alarm bells off for America was that he might endorse a C word that rhymes with communism. So he has to go. An American-friendly leader is installed, and that was the end of that. But let's mention Haiti. Haiti has been screwed over simply for being the first African republic established by former S word that rhymes with caves. America and France have crushed any hope this country had for prosperity, even if they say they never broke the law. France still imposed a massive debt on Haiti after it had ravaged the lands for its imperial ambitions, and the US didn't allow Haiti to participate in free trade, essentially imposing an embargo on the island for being African and free. We move on to Vietnam. Everyone knows about Vietnam. The French wanted to keep cheating them, so they called the Americans to crush the Vietnamese, despite the leader writing a letter to America asking for help, since America at the time was known for being all about freedom and against colonial rule. But no, the Americans side with the French, and we start an I word that rhymes with a legal event that takes people away with the Vietnamese that splits the country in two. The US isn't happy with the leader of their half of Vietnam, so they work to remove him. But the opposition leader that the US picks is so bad, the US is dragged into a decades-long sneaking into a Vietnam that ends with our defeat. Spoiler alert, this isn't the last time this happens. We return to the West, where in Brazil, a new L word that rhymes with a leftist leader is looking a bit too C word that rhymes with communism. There is already an opposition leader ready to launch a C word that rhymes with Sioux. The US don't have a problem with this guy, so they just send a group of people who take people away off the coast of Brazil and stand by in case they're needed. In Chile, the CIA does such a good job at overthrowing a leader and establishing a really mean dictator to protect American companies that it leads anyone trying to piece things together down a rabbit hole. But it's safe to say at this point, pattern recognition takes place, and we know better. We move to Africa, but I forgot about the country of Liberia. When Africa was being carved out by European powers, America got a piece of land in the east of Africa that they called Liberia. It was created to send back newly freed S word that rhymes with caves in America back to Africa. Unfortunately, those newly freed S words were so American They E word that rhymes with pop slave the local population and cheated the country, proving that everyone is capable of everything and we truly are all the same. But in the 80s, America sets its sight on Libya. For a while, the leader Muammar Gaddafi has been funding groups of a T word that rhymes with flowerists. But when there was talks of uniting Libya and Chad, the US saw this as a no-no and set in motion a C word that rhymes with Sue. It led to a puppet leader in Chad that cheated the country into a very bad place, and that was enough for the plan of unity to end. So America, not caring about the instability they just caused, move on to Grenada for having a leader that they didn't like. They overthrow him, install their American-friendly leader, and move on. The next country is Panama, where the U.S. has control of the Panama Canal and a dictator who has served the U.S. well but has gotten a bit cheeky. After the dictator Noriega gets charged with very bad things in Florida and an American is taken away on vacation in Panama, the U.S. overthrows him and establishes a more level headed puppet leader. The country of Panama wouldn't get ownership of the canal until 1999, and not even 30 years later, we got another white collar cheater trying to take it without permission. We reach Afghanistan, the Vietnam for the millennials. In late 1989, the USSR sneaks into Afghanistan and America funds the other side. Figures who would go on to establish the T word that rhymes with the Charlie band and a word that rhymes with the and the I word that rhymes with the crisis. The American backside win and the Americans consider the job done and move on, not knowing they will have to return to reap what they sowed. While the U.S. returns to challenge the T word after 9, number that rhymes with 7, they also sneak into Iraq to take away on vacation the really mean dictator Saddam Hussein. The man is taken away and the country is left in bad shape. Groups who disapprove of the U.S. are left unchecked, and one of them, known as the I word, starts to take off. Eventually, the crisis dies down, the T words regain control of Afghanistan after a long, costly event that takes people away that we didn't win, and the country of Iraq becomes such a bad place. God help all those poor girls in that country. Oh, and of course, the very bad things American soldiers were told to ignore that involved boys in Afghanistan. America has never been the only really bad in this world, but it has been a major player in maintaining the really bad in power. The last C word that rhymes with Sue the U.S. launched was in Libya. Gaddafi was a mix of dictator and man of the people, but the U.S. along with NATO felt like Gaddafi had to go away on vacation. But at the last moment, America decided the whole regime has to go. The country was left with a power vacuum that plunged the country into a civil event that takes people away, and we don't care. But America isn't immune to being cheated. One example is how foreign G word that rhymes with dangs, and even governments will use cyberspace to take without permission literally hundreds of billions of dollars from Americans through cheating. It's something that happens every year and in so many ways that the US government has very little control over it. Most of the money that it takes away from us is never recovered. As we speak, we are getting cheated by foreigners and it's all out of our hands. I know it sounds familiar. In the 2016 election, Russian President Putin was suspected of cheating to cheat the election results, and personally, I think he did do it, but that it wouldn't have mattered. Americans had lost so much faith in their government that a Washington insider like Hillary Clinton would have never won. Americans are so B word that rhymes with brainwashed. They thought since these Washington insiders keep doing the dirty work of the billionaires, let's elect a billionaire to save us from the politicians. We are literally in idiocracy right now. If we decide to change the way our civilization functions, we would have to be mindful of how much control corporations have over our world in order to prevent societal collapse. All the corporations that are cheating us and making us sick are also the pillars of our human civilization. Canadians and Greenland need to be careful because even if their intelligence agencies can counter anything America throws at them, there is the possibility that other countries will launch false flag attacks and further divide the West to weaken the iron grip America has on the world. Even though America shouldn't rule with an iron fist, neither should anybody else. Let freedom and righteousness rule. These type of governments that cheat other nations also cheat their own people. We Americans are painfully aware of that, from bad actors in the government to companies like McKinley or United Health Insurance or private equity firms. We are being lied to, cheated by, and other mean things by American corporations. We need to stand up for ourselves and the rest of humanity because out of all the corrupt nations that people have to challenge, we have the best shot at actually beating our corrupt plutocrats. Thanks for your time and may God help us all.